Welcome back to another episode of Pinal's People. Our new guest today on this episode is Jim Shove, an elder at the Maricopa Mountain View Community Church and the founder and CEO of the Maricopa Pantry. Jim, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure to be on the show. Thank you.
Thank you. So to kick off our discussion today, could you share with me a little bit about how you got started with the pantry?
It was about 20 years ago, and me and Alice had lived here for a while. She worked at the school, so we knew pretty much a lot of people. And somebody came up to us, a rather poor family, all excited about this food that they got from a food bank for a $15 donation. And I looked at it and, it's like, I got to do better. So we started purchasing food and passing it out to the people. And then we got to the point where me and Alice couldn't afford it out of our own pockets because there got to be too many. So we asked our friends and neighbors to chip in $5, $10, $15. And it just kept growing to what it is today. Mm-hmm. We started out of our backyard with a pickup truck. And then we went to a pickup truck and a trailer. And then we went to a 36-foot trailer. And we did it out of our yard and another man's yard. We dropped half the food in our yard and half the food in his yard. And my whole dream was to get it to the point where we could handle 100 people and bring it up to the church, which is what we did. In those days, it was called MVCC Food Bank. And that's basically how it got started. When we got to 100 people, we brought it to the church. And then as we got bigger, we actually took it up to Maricopa. We were at the district office for the schools for about 9 years. Mm-hmm. And we held it in both places. We did Friday night at the school, Saturday at the school, and Saturday here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so I know you had mentioned kind of off camera a little bit about this, and I know not everybody might know this story. So could you share a little bit about the connection between the church and the pantry?
The connection between the church and the pantry is we needed to collect more money. Mm-hmm. Because we were bringing in so much food, we couldn't handle it. Me and my wife were putting in everything we could, and we just couldn't afford no more. So a business owner came up to me one day and said, "Jim, I'd like to get involved, but I want to give my money to you, not to the church." And I asked him why. And he said, "Because if I give to the church, then I'll be expected to give to the other churches." He said, "I believe in what you're doing." So I started thinking of a way that we could make it easy for people, and that's when we created Maricopa Pantry. Maricopa Pantry's format is to get food and help other food banks. We help a food bank in Pierce, Arizona. We help this food bank here. This is a joint effort of MVCC Food Bank and Maricopa Pantry here. We're serving between 1,400 and 1,600 families a week here. We've helped churches up in Maricopa itself. We're international. We do 2 towns in Mexico. We do basically 2 women's shelters. We do a couple of boys' homes, a couple of girls' homes. And I really don't know how far our arms reach because I have a very well-oiled machine and a great group of people behind me. And, they handle a lot of the workload too. Yeah.
And so you had mentioned when you first started, your goal had been to help, about 100 people. Can you, I don't know if you have a ballpark on the numbers now, but can you explain a little bit about how much you guys have grown?
Just at this one alone, that's why we're not in Maricopa anymore. When COVID hit, I couldn't afford to split my forces because we were getting hit so hard. Right now, we're feeding between 1,400 and 1,550 families a week here. During COVID, we were feeding about 1,600 families a week here. So we went from 10 families to 100 families, brought it to here, and now we're up to 1,500 families a week that we serve. Sometimes people will ask me, like, if you come down to the food bank to watch it from start to finish, you'll see some trucks pull in, because they start lining up at 5 o'clock in the morning back there, and you'll see trucks pull in and come in front of the line. Those are people that work for me, and they take food to people that can't get to the food bank, invalids, homeless, housebound. And we do about 200 families that way right at the beginning of the food bank. And then after the food bank, I go out and deliver food too, me and a couple other people.
Wow, that's very impressive. What keeps you motivated to do the work that you do with the Maricopa Food Pantry?
I love people. I love helping. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know growing up, it was tough even for my parents. And I've always loved just helping people. I like to see somebody smile. Mm-hmm. You
Yeah.
know, I do have a story that's very private. I will tell you off camera, but I can't tell you here.
No worries.
Okay.
And so, you mentioned COVID earlier, and I think a lot of people, might not know that food pantries, in a lot of cases, were very much on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic, especially as people lost their jobs, whether they were working in the restaurant industry or entertainment. How were you guys as a pantry able to navigate that? And did you ever think you would be on the forefront of, an international crisis like that?
I didn't think anything like that would happen, to be honest with you, but like I told you before, we've been to the hurricanes and helped with the hurricane disaster relief and stuff. We just decided as a food bank, we didn't miss a beat. I mean, we were open from day one. We never closed. And we decided that it didn't matter how bad it got. Now, we did mask up and we did everything we were supposed to, but how do you quit? People still need to eat. So we just all decided as a force that we're not going to stop. We're going to see it through. And we did lose some. My treasurer died of COVID. I held her and another lady in my arms that died of COVID. And I do think I had it in the very beginning, but it was very mild. But me and my wife never got sick. I thought I had the flu for a couple of days, and then the food bank hit. And it was Saturday, so I came to the food bank. And we only had 2 that really got sick. The rest of the people were just fine. But like I said, we wore our masks. It was hard to distance like we should have because of making the baskets. But everybody just chipped in and did what they did. We had stuff to sterilize your hands. We had gloves. We had wipes. We had everything anybody ever needed to try and just keep as sterile as we could at the time.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And so, I asked you earlier what's kept you motivated with the pantry, and I'm curious too, can you share a little bit about your work with the church too, and what's kept you motivated there?
I love God. I really do. I'm either your best or worst example of a Christian, depending on the day, and depending on how bad you irritate me. But if you look up King David in the Bible, he did so many things wrong. And he's one of 2 people that God mentioned in the Bible and said that David had a heart after his own. And I don't feel worthy for what the Lord did to me. And that's why I do it. That's the only thing I can give to my King, is my time. And I've told a lot of people, even my wife, that everybody thinks about when they get to heaven, they want to stand before God and they want him to say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." I got a feeling when I go before God, he's going to look at me and say, "What in the world were you thinking?"
So switching gears a little bit, tell me a little bit about Sensory Santa and that project.
I work with Chris K. Hall and Dr. Joanne Siebert, and it's amazing. I mean, I have an autistic granddaughter. She's severely autistic and nonverbal. I started this before she was born. Actually, Joanne Siebert started it, and Chris finds the rooms, and we help get stuff together for it. And the things we've seen and the way it's grown. I mean, we started out at the villages one day. Now we're up to 2 days at the villages. I've done private parties as Santa. I've been in the Maricopa school system, in a couple of the elementary schools. I've been in, Mesa school systems has me go up there every year. And this year I had a 32-year-old woman that was severely autistic and nonverbal, never been on Santa's lap, and she came and fell in love with me, sat on my lap. She had brought a Christmas card. It's still hanging on my fridge at the house. And her mom and dad are just bawling their eyes out. And these kids can't handle the malls and stuff. But they're smart. People don't realize how smart they are. And they know everything. And we make it quiet in a room like this, where their family is the only one in the room with me and my wife and Joanne's daughter, and she's the elf. And we make it so that they can enjoy it, so that they're not overwhelmed with everything that's going on. It's nice and quiet. We have the big Santa chair, and I got the outfit from God, I can't think of the Santa show. If you saw the outfit, you know what show it's from. Christmas Chronicles. I have his outfit.
Oh, wow.
And I love it. Everybody loves it. And my wife says I'm just a really old kid. I love to play, and I love to play with kids, and I really am a child.
Well, Jim, I love your spirit. With your work with Sensory Santa, your work with the church out here and the pantry, of all of that, what do you wish more people knew about, whether it's the work you've done or this community, or even just...
I think we have an amazing community. If the community wasn't what it is, I could have never got this work done. I have 50 to 60 volunteers that come here every week. I have a half a dozen that are here almost every day. And with this new change I want to do, I'm going to eventually have to get a payroll. But up until this point, the last 20 years, we have not had a payroll. Even mine and my wife's time has been all volunteered. Nobody has received a dime out of this food bank. It's all gone back into the food bank to keep it growing. And that's because of the people in Maricopa. My wife says this food bank is neighbors helping neighbors. And that's what it is. If you come to the food bank and spend a day with us, you'll see that, because we know everybody. We had a lady come in last week, ran out of gas, so she got here crying because she needed food, and I found out she wasn't crying because she needed food. She did need food, but she's crying because her son died the night before in a car accident. I know these people. Me and Alice know them personally. We're dealing with a family and been dealing with them since before Christmas. The daughter died on Ralston Road in that car crash. And I've been feeding that family for like 2 years. And she was actually trying to teach me Spanish, which I don't know very much English, and Spanish is a real killer for me. But I know these people, and that's why it works. This community is an amazing community. If more people would just open their eyes up to it and see what's in this community, that's where the pantry works. It opens up their eyes. Every business person that has come to this pantry has told me, Jim, we had no idea what you did till we came here. And they still come. Sheriff Lamb said he's coming back. Kevin Kavanaugh said him and his wife came down and loved it, and he said he's coming back. Angel Raymond's here. She also does free legal advice out of here. Once they get involved, they're stuck, they're hooked.
What would you say to people in this community, and so the title of our show, of course, is Pinal's People, so even just the general Pinal County community, what would you say to encourage them to, if you wanted to encourage them to get more involved or give back in the way that you have?
I think everybody should get involved and give back. It makes you feel better as a person to help somebody. I talk to a lot of cynical people too, and they're always saying something like, did you see what this person did? But they're always running their mouth. I tell everybody, God had the right plan. He gave you 2 ears, 2 eyes, and a mouth. Look and listen twice as much as you run that mouth, and you might see something you like.
Wow.
And I don't look at people. I deal with the derelicts. I deal with the druggies. I deal with everything. And I don't look at them that way. I look at them as people, because we've all had problems. And it's what we do with our problems that makes us the people we are. We can either drown in our sorrows, or we can lift ourselves up. And I believe that the best thing for any heart is to help somebody else that's less fortunate than you, because there's always somebody less fortunate. I've held sick babies, and when they cry, I cry. It's a blessing to be able to give to somebody. But the trick about giving is, don't expect anything in return. I've married some people, and I've refused some people because I've asked them, what is a marriage? Well, it's 50-50. No, it isn't. It's giving 100% of yourself and expecting nothing in return. If you expect nothing in return, and that's the same with helping people, if you expect nothing in return, then anything is a blessing. If they say thank you, it's a blessing. If they reach out and take your hand and shake it, it's a blessing. If you expect something, it's not a blessing. With me and my wife, I love her unconditionally. There's days we don't want to talk to each other, but she'll walk by me and put her hand on my shoulder. That's a blessing. That's something I didn't expect. It's the way we look at things that makes us lovable or hateful. And I think we need to start looking at people through a different set of eyes. I don't push my religion on anybody, but before I go anywhere to talk to somebody or before I start the food bank, and we do pray before the food bank, and we've had every denominational pray with us. And the one thing I ask for is to give us your heart and your eyes and let us look at these people the way you look at them, not the way we look at them. Because you'll see a car come in here that's worth $50,000, $60,000. But I don't know if he lost his job yesterday and him and his wife don't have any money for food to feed their children. You know, it's not, we don't know their circumstances, and until we do, we shouldn't be judging them or looking at them. You know, if we look at them through his eyes and his heart, then we don't see the ugly, we see the good. Somebody asked Alice one day, why is that person coming through? She's got a $60,000 car. Alice told him, Alice is my wife, she told him Jim has a $70,000 pickup truck and he just lost his job yesterday. We run a food bank, we're good. She doesn't, she has to come here. And that's the way we teach our people to look at people. Don't look at what they drive, because we can't see the rest of their lives. We know they're here. If they're here, our job is to serve and not judge. And that's why we should look at people out on the street too. My job is to be nice to you, not judge you. And if we looked at people through those eyes and those hearts, it'd be a lot better world.
That's incredible. Before I ask you the last question too, tell me a little bit, we were out there earlier. Tell me a little bit about the Rockets and some of the, the summer program you guys have going on here. Yeah.
Mike Conley is the pastor of this church. He's the president of my company, Maricopa Pantry. We met Mike through the food bank. Most of the people that we are with us came to the food bank for food, moved into the city, didn't have a job, or wasn't making enough to cover their costs of moving here, and they come to the food bank. And him and his wife had been coming to the food bank for a while, and they were looking for a church. And everybody in this town knows I smoke, I don't hide it. They do too. And they came to this church, and I was walking up smoking a cigarette, and they said this is their home. Since then, they rented my rental property for a while and became the president of my company. He went to Texas with me during the hurricanes, and he's been everywhere with me since. We've been together about 6 years. They're like my son and my daughter, and their children are like my grandchildren. It's how we look at people and how we portray ourselves. We want to make ourselves easy to get to know, not hard to get to know. There's some people I stand away, and I don't let them get to know me, because I know what they're about, and I don't allow that into my life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That does make a lot of sense. So, Jim, I'm really excited to ask you this last question. This is a question we've been asking every guest we've had on the show since the beginning of the year. And, with your perspective, I'd love to get your input on it, which is, let's say it's 20, 30, 40 years down the line, and you've done everything you've wanted to do with the food pantry and with Sensory Santa and with the church out here, and you've accomplished all these things, and now you're getting ready to pass on what you've learned and pass on the leadership of some of these things to the next generation. And of everything you've accomplished, everything you've experienced, you can only pass on one lesson or piece of advice to the next generation. What would it be?
Love your neighbor. Seriously, because if you can't love your neighbor, you can't love much anything else. Because you see your neighbor all the time. It's love your neighbor. I don't even think you can love yourself if you can't love somebody that you know, other than you.
That's beautiful. Jim, thank you so much. I really appreciate having you on the show.
I've enjoyed being here.
Thank you.